Well, thank you, folks. Wow, it took a few years to get to that. For me, it's great seeing it on the screen. Finally, it happened. But I'll tell you a little bit about this specific making of this film. We had acquired Murray's archive. I'd begged him for 15 years. He was doing nothing with it. He always had visions of making a second Newport film. He had made one in 1967 called Festival. It was a really Verte's sort of, very, very, edited, very few performances in their entirety. He was just trying to get the essence of the festival. And at the time, it worked quite well, but there was so much material that had been shot along the way, and he kind of kept it in his closet, and no one was able to really use it. Murray made three films in his career that were like theatrical films and a bunch of industrials, but he held on to those films like they were his children. I mean, you really had to go to him, and he was not easy to deal with if he did not like what you were presenting to him. I just never went away. 15 years. We became friends. He didn't like me at first, but then he would call me at night and say, "How do you think we can get a screening of this stuff? You think someone might want to get it on HBO?" Or something? And it would go on and on. Of course, he had to direct it. He just wanted my opinion. And finally, at 89, I got a call from his son, and he said, "Look, now is time. If you're still interested in the archive, if you and Richard are, I think it's a good time because, I don't think he's going to be able to make the film he wants to make." So we were able to get it, and of course Murray along the way kept saying, "Well, next year we'll start production," and you got it. And unfortunately he didn't. He died about 6 months later. But now we have this archive, and most of it's been digitized, and we envision making several films, a couple of artist focused films like this one, but my vision really is the story of Newport, as I said earlier, because I don't know. I mean, it was just this magical time. Not only was it the folk revivalists like Peter Paul and Mary, and of course Dylan and Joan Baez, but what they were doing is they were going around the country and finding these people that made records in the 1920s who were still living. 1963, they were only in their 50s, 60s. They weren't that old. But, the world was a lot larger back then. So they found Mississippi John Hurt. And they brought John Hurt to Newport in 63. And then they found this one, and then that one, and it went on and on. And Jim Queskin, who had a great jug band, Jim Queskin's jug band, came out to look at the footage. And he told me that no one was paid more than $50 to appear at Newport. It was Bob Dylan, if you were a background singer in the Swan Silvertones, $50. What they did with all the rest of the money that they might have made is they used it during the year to go around and to find these artists and bring them. And really, I mean, they would have been lost forever. Those recordings in the 20s, that would have been it. And Murray and his crew filmed it, and we have this archive now. And, so you've got this story of bringing these people. Then you have this kind of battle between the aesthetics of Alan Lomax and Seeger and people like Albert Grossman, who wanted the more contemporary people, and Seeger, who was a total traditionalist. And it kind of culminates in 65 when Bob Dylan plugs in, and that was sort of the beginning of the end of it. But the years prior to that, it was just this magical stuff. And so we wanted to make the Peter, Paul, and Mary film. I was originally going to direct it. We got to Peter, Paul, and Mary's people, and Peter said, "Well, I asked Murray about this. We had a big fight, and I walked out the door, and I haven't spoken to him since." And I said, "Well, it's a different story now." He goes, Peter said, "I just don't think the footage is good enough." He had seen it in Murray's office, in the work print on a flatbed. We digitized it all. We really did a good job on it. So we had a screening at Jim Brown, the director's office, and he saw it. He was in tears when he saw, especially that bit when Mary's kind of dancing around during the sound check. That was what got him. And he said, "Okay, we're going to do it, but I really want Jim to direct it. He's worked with me for years." And I said, fine. I knew Jim. I said, I just want to get it done. All right, this is number one. Let's just do it. And so Jim directed it. He worked with Peter. They wrote it, and there it is. So if anyone has any specific questions, I'm happy to answer. Okay, well, what we have next then is, oh yes, I'm sorry. Judy Collins was a big part of it. In fact, she was on the board of Newport, as was Peter Yarrow. Yeah, the board was Pete Seeger, Peter Yarrow, Judy Collins, Mike Seeger, Tashi Seeger, musicians. Well, if you stick around, maybe you'll be surprised. So we're going to have some outtakes now. I'll tell you, I don't want to introduce each clip, but I'll just tell you about a few of them. I mentioned John Hurt. There's a clip of John Hurt playing at a workshop. And if you look carefully, you see all the kids sitting in front, and there's two people kind of giggling, but their eyes are fixed on John Hurt's fingers. And Donovan and Joan Baez are the two. And Donovan is like this. There was no videos of instruction on how to play like that. You had to watch the guy or try to figure it out from the record. So it was a revelation to guitar players to watch this man play. They were right in front. I mean, it was so intimate, and they're just studying him, and I just love that bit. It just shows you the whole thing. And then very, very young, I know Mavis Staples has been out here. This is probably the first footage you'll see of the Staples Singers, 1963. There's a wonderful bit of Doc Watson. It was his first large concert. And they teamed him together with the king of bluegrass, Bill Monroe. And what they did is they recreated the Monroe Brothers, which was Bill Monroe's first recordings that he made in the 30s. So he and Doc sing these duets together, and one of them is on the outtake reel. Judy Collins and some other wonderful stuff. I hope you enjoyed. I'll stick around at the end if anybody has any specific questions. But thank you again, and hope you enjoy it.
I couldn't imagine a better way to finish this the film. Thank you, Joe. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. We could do it again. We could do it again. We can't forget what they're singing about. No matter what happens, America is great in its own way with all the people. And at Newport, they knew that. And they were trying to overcome a lot of stuff that was going on then, and never ends. Had to say that, I'm sorry. Anybody have any specific questions? Thank you. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, how it was actually, technically, it's amazing. I mean, the thing that really kills me about this, particularly 64, 65, now I'm a musician, I play in a band, and you go to the place, they mic the bass drum, they mic the hi-hat, they mic the kick, there's one vocal mic. The band is in front of the vocal mic, and they know when to go up like that to play a solo. They know when to gather around and just exactly how to get the harmony right. One microphone, okay? There's two microphones above that were used to record for Vanguard Records, who actually put a lot of this stuff out. They were done in stereo. Murray's material is in mono, but it all exists. It's all been, well, we're in the process of cleaning it up, but it's astoundingly still really good and well balanced, considering, I mean, technically there was really not much going on back then. It was just that these guys knew how to sing, and they knew how to perform in front of a microphone, Yeah. Sure. Why not?
It's also, sure, we can try to do that, of course, but it's also going to be on PBS I think starting from the very end of Thanksgiving weekend, and it's going to be part of their pledge drive, so you can also see it there. I mean, we can try to organize yeah.
Sure. Give me a call. My agent will talk to yours. We'll work it out. Yes. Hey. Right, and it was an honor for me to work with him on this. It really was. I've always been a big fan of Peter, Paul, and Mary, so it was a treat. Well, this stuff, I mean, there's so much music out there. It's like, I'm the wrong guy to ask. I mean, I have a record collection of pre-1940 78s, and I spend most of my days in that room. So I'm not the right guy to ask. But good music will reach everybody. Yeah. It never stops being made. You just have to find the stuff that you like, and it's out there. You just got to look for it. It never stops. The human spirit will never stop creating art and creating music. And some of it you might not like, but there's going to be something out there you will like. You just got to look for it. Yeah. George started the festival in '59 as an offshoot from the Newport Jazz Festival. A woman in Newport who was a folk music fan asked him about it, and she helped support it. And that was in '59, and they did it for maybe 1 year or 2 years. Then it stopped for a few years. Then it came back in the early '60s, '62, '63. And Toshi was one of the camera people, Pete Seeger's wife. Everyone helped out.
How many years of the festival did Murray Lerner film?
Murray shot from '63 to '66.
And was it a commission, or it was his?
Well, first, they wanted to document it. It was done to document what was going on. But then Murray said, this could make a wonderful documentary. And so by '64, he got a few more people that were more professional cameramen, and he was filming it for the idea of making a documentary, but also preserving it. He shot way more than he needed to do a 90-minute documentary. So it was a combination of preservation, recording what was going on, and Murray's idea of making his film. Yes. No, there were 3 years of performances here, and what they did on Newport changed. If you look at like Judy Collins, there's one microphone. That was '63. By '65, when a lot of those, they had decided that, well, okay, we could mic the guitar, we could do this and that, and they came up with some ideas of doing it. Remember, the audiences, this is not like 20,000 people, 100,000 people, 200 like Woodstock. There was like maybe 5,000 in '63. It grew. It never really got huge. So, and the workshops, they were on a stage that short in the middle of a field, and people gathered around, so it was a different thing. Yeah, well, yes, totally. Yeah. That was it. And Queskin told me they would have done it for free. They wanted to be at Newport. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you again for coming, and thank you, April. And remember, this is a benefit for our cinema, which is happening, folks. And please continue to support it.